right, so today we are starting into our textbook. So we're starting lesson 111. This is a multi-day lesson. Okay, so our goal for today is going to really be number 2 down here, where it says successfully identify terms, coefficients, and constants of an algebraic expression. So I have to go over what that different vocab means. And then really building into our next lesson, we're going to be given a real-world context problem. Our goal is going to be to translate that real-world context problem into an expression, simplify it, and then identify the terms, coefficients, and constants. So all that work we did last week with simplifying expressions, this is where this is going to come into play. Okay, so we're going to be in our textbook today. First, we're going to do a quick warm-up. We'll do it next to page 11. Okay, these are 2 problems from what we did last week. Okay, so why don't you attempt both of these right now, and then we'll check and see how we did on them. Okay, so these are both review problems. Okay, so this first one is review of double distributing. Okay, so remember when we are multiplying 2 sets of parentheses together, first off, we know it's multiplication because there's no operation in between here, meaning we're multiplying. So remember how we do this. We're going to multiply the 2x to both terms in the second set of parentheses. So 2x times x, that's 2x squared, and 2x times 6 plus 12x. Then we're going to multiply the negative 5 to both of these. Okay, so negative 5 times x, that's minus 5x. Negative 5 times 6, minus 30. Okay, we're not done though, because we're trying to fully simplify. Okay, so now our job is to find any like terms and put them together. Well, 2x squared doesn't have any like terms, but we do see this 12x and this minus 5x, which are like terms. So fully simplified, we'd still have the 2x squared in front, and 12x minus 5x plus 7x, and we still have the minus 30 at the end. Okay, that's fully simplified. We also call this standard form, where the biggest exponent comes first, working down to just a constant at the end. So that's a review of what we did actually just yesterday on Monday. Last week we did problems like the second one. Okay, so this is a distributing and combining like terms review. So we have a 4 in front, so we need to multiply that to both sets of parentheses first. Okay, so 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times negative 3 minus 12. Then we need to simplify this second piece. So notice we're not multiplying. You have to see the difference between this first warm-up problem and this second one. First one, there was nothing in between here. Okay, second one, there's a minus in between. Okay, so it's saying we're subtracting everything inside here. So this is the same thing as distributing a negative 1 to both of these. So we have minus x and then minus 5. Okay. Now, this is just a combining like terms problem. We have the 8x, try that again. So we have 8x and minus x. Well, 8x minus x, that's 7x. Then we have negative 12 and negative 5. Those together make minus 17. Okay, that's just a quick review of what we did last week. That'll be a good lead into what we're doing today. Okay, so now we're going to go in our textbook to, this is page 11. Okay, so make sure we're open up to page 11. Okay, so our problem says identify each term, coefficient, and constant of this expression. Notice we crossed out the term factor. We're just going to deal with these 3, terms, coefficients, constants. Okay, this is really our main goal for today. This is what you're going to see in all of our examples. It's a nice culminating lesson from what we started last week because we're really practicing all of our simplifying skills. But then we have our new vocab that we'll go through and how we write each of these out. Okay, so we'll kind of make this example 1 a nice clean example where it explains what each of these different words are. Okay, so first things first, if we're going to identify the terms, coefficients, and constants, we need to simplify the expression. Okay, so just like we did in our warm-up, we're going to start by simplifying. We'd multiply the 2 to both of these terms, 6 plus 2x Then we need to multiply the x to both of these. Plus x times 1, that's x. X times negative 4x, that'd be minus 4x squared. And then we still have this plus 5 at the end. This would not be considered a simplified expression. There are still terms that can be put together. Okay. We also want to put this in standard form. So notice this negative 4x squared is the only term with an exponent of 2 on it. So we're actually going to bring that to the front. Negative 4x squared. Okay, now we look for like terms. So we have a 2x and an x. Those together would make plus 3x. Then we have some numbers. So we have a 6 and a 5. Those together would make plus 11. This is a simplified expression. Okay, so now we have our new piece for today. Okay, so identifying the terms, coefficients, and constants. Okay, so first, our terms, that's really just all the parts that make up our expression. Okay, so we do have specific ways that we write each of these out. So for our terms, we're just going to write each of them separated by a comma. Okay, so if the question said how many terms are there, we have 3 terms. Okay, negative 4x squared is a term, comma, 3x is a term, comma, 11 is a term. Okay, terms, that's all of the parts, the single pieces that make up a bigger expression. Okay, so again, the way we write them, the signs come with, if it's a negative. If it's a positive, we don't need to write the plus sign in front, but if it is a negative, we want to carry that over so it's included. Okay, and we write each of them separated by a comma. Okay. Next, we're identifying the coefficients. Just for making it simpler so we're not scrolling back and forth, we're just going to rewrite our simplified expression down here to reference. Okay, so remember our simplified expression was negative 4x squared plus 3x plus 11. Okay, so next we have the coefficients. Okay, so we're going to give a nice little definition for this one. Okay, so the coefficients, that's the numbers in front of variables. Just the numbers. Okay, a coefficient is a number in front of a variable. Okay, so in this problem, if we were going to list out our coefficients, well, we actually have 2 of them. Okay, not 3, we have 2 of them. So we have a negative 4 that's out in front of a variable, and we have a 3 that's out in front of a variable. Notice it's separated by commas. Notice we didn't put 11, right? 11 is not a coefficient because it does not have a variable attached to it. Okay, we have 2 coefficients, they're negative 4 and 3. Also notice we did not write negative 4x squared. That's not the coefficient. The coefficient is just the number in front of the variable. Okay. Lastly, we have constants. Okay, so again, we'll give ourselves a nice little simple definition here. So a constant, that's just a number. Okay. Constant is the piece of the expression where no matter what you put in for x, the constant is always still that same number. Okay. So if we're thinking in the context of this problem about what the constant is, well, the only constant in here would be that 11 at the end. Okay, and the way we can think about this is no matter what you put in for x, that 11 is always just going to be an 11 because there's no variable attached to it, right? No matter what goes in for x, the end of that expression is always just going to be a plus 11. Okay. All right, so that's the basic gist of what we're doing today. Okay, so now let's get some practice in. Okay, so flip ahead to page 17. Okay, And now we have a couple problems here where our directions are identify the terms, coefficients, and constants. Okay, so our first step is always going to be to simplify if possible. Okay, so I'll make a note at the top. Simplify first. Okay, for your notes. So if we looked at number one, you should be thinking in your head, okay, I go term from term. There are no like terms. There's no parentheses. So we really don't have anything we need to do to simplify. So that's great. Go right to listing. Okay. So using the model from the first example, why don't you guys take a second and try to write out nice and neatly your terms, coefficients, and constants. All right. Let's see how we did on this. Okay, so reminder, the terms, the parts that make up our larger expression. So here we'd have three terms. Okay, our terms would be 12a to the third, comma, 16a, comma, 4. Okay, separate our terms with commas, all of the parts that make up our expression. Okay. All right, next, we're listing out our coefficients. Remember, coefficient is just a number that's in front of a variable. Okay, so here we have two coefficients. Okay, our coefficients would be the 12 and the 16. Again, if you wrote 12a to the third and 16a, that's wrong. Okay, the coefficient is just the number in front of the variable. Okay, last one, our constants. Well, that's just the number. Okay, so just 4. If you wrote anything else other than just 4, that would be wrong. So don't get tripped up when a problem says constant with a S at the end. Okay, really, each of these should have parentheses around it saying there could be one, there could be multiple, but if we're thinking about a constant, if you're ever writing more than one constant, that's a problem, right? Because if there was another constant, another number here, they could be put together and combined. Okay, so in a problem, you always have a max of just one constant. All right, now we look at number 2. Okay, so again, why don't you guys try to do this one first on your own? Okay, so as you're working, hopefully you remembered our note at the top that we need to make sure that we simplify first. Okay, so we look for any like terms. Here we do have like terms, right? 21x squared and negative 15x squared. So we would have to put those together first. So 21x squared minus 15x squared, that makes 6x squared. 3x and 9 are not like terms, so we'll just rewrite those. Plus 3x plus 9. Okay. Now we're set up to list out our terms, coefficients, and constants because our expression is simplified. Okay, so our terms, well, we have three terms that make up our expression. They are 6x squared, 3x, and 9. Okay, if any of those were negative, remember the negative would travel with it. So like if it said minus 9, we'd put a negative 9 at the end. Okay, next, our coefficients. Okay, so our coefficients, again, there's only one right answer here. Okay, it would be 6 and 3. Nothing else. Okay, if you put 6x squared, if you put 3x, that's wrong. Coefficient is just a number. It's the number in front of a variable. Okay, and last, constant. There's only one right answer for all these. Our constant would just be 9. Okay, anything else, if you put 3 with it or a 6 with it or anything else, that would be wrong for the constant. Okay, so that's our lesson for today. So we're simplifying expressions. Then we're listing out our terms, coefficients, and constants, those 3 new vocabulary words.